Three old monks walked the roads of ancient China. They had no gold, no temple, no great wisdom to sell. All they carried was laughter. The laughing monks of the Golden Road long ago, in the misty hills of Hunan province, three monks walked the ancient roads of China. They were not young men, their backs bent like old willows, their faces carved deep with the lines of laughter, and their robes worn thin from 1,000 journeys. The villagers called them the Three Fools of Heaven, though not unkindly. Wherever these monks appeared, joy followed like a faithful dog. Their names were Bao, the short and round one whose belly shook when he laughed; Shen, the tall and thin one who laughed so hard he often lost his balance; and old Wen, the eldest, who rarely said anything at all, but whose laughter, when it finally came, sounded like temple bells caught in a windstorm. The bet it began, as most things between old friends do, with an argument. The three monks had stopped to rest beneath a great camphor tree near the banks of the Siang River. They were eating simple rice and watching the river push past when Bao suddenly slapped his knee. "I have been thinking," he announced. "A dangerous habit," said Shen. "I have been thinking," Bao continued undeterred, "that one of us must die first." Silence. The river kept moving. "This is your great thought?" Shen raised an eyebrow so high it disappeared beneath his headscarf. "That mortal men are mortal." "Not the thought," said Bao. "The bet. Which of us will go first to meet the Buddha?" Old Wen, who had been watching a dragonfly hover above the water, slowly turned his head. A smile crept across his face like dawn. "Crossing a mountain. I will go first," he said simply. "I am the oldest." "Ha!" Bao clapped. "Then Shen and I agree. When you go, old Wen, we will not weep. We will laugh until the mountains hear us, for we will have won." "And what is the prize?" asked Shen. Nobody could think of one, so they agreed the laughter itself would be the prize and sealed the bet with 3 cups of river water, which tasted terrible and made them laugh all the more. The road and its joys for many more years. The three monks traveled together through China's long belly, through market towns where children chased them for stories, through mountain passes where monks of stricter orders frowned at their noise, through temples where even the stone Buddhas seemed to smile a little wider when the three old fools arrived. Their teaching was not written in sutras. It arrived in the form of a joke told to a grieving widow, a silly dance performed for a sick child, a shared laugh between Bao and a farmer who had lost half his harvest to a flood. "There is still half," Bao would say, and somehow, impossibly, the farmer would laugh, and the laughing made the half feel like enough. Shen once laughed so enthusiastically at his own stumble on a mountain path that a passing merchant stopped, alarmed, then started laughing too. And then his horse seemed to huff in amusement. And soon the whole road had dissolved into absurdity, and no one could quite remember why anything had ever been serious. And when, quiet, steady when, he laughed most rarely, but most deeply. His laughter came from a place so still inside him that when it surfaced, everyone nearby felt it in their chest, like the lowest note of a great bronze bell. The winning. Then one autumn, in a small village outside Changsha, old Wen grew still. Not the stillness of meditation, the deeper stillness. He lay on a simple mat in a borrowed room, and Bao and Shen sat beside him through the night. His breathing became shallow, like a stream approaching its end. His eyes were closed, but his lips held the faint architecture of a smile. In the gray. Hour before dawn, Wen opened his eyes one last time and looked at his two old friends with an expression that contained everything: the camphor tree, the river water, the dragonfly, all the miles, all the laughing. Then he was gone. Bao looked at Shen, Shen looked at Bao, and then Bao began to laugh. It started in his belly as it always did, rising up through his chest, spilling out into the quiet room, warm and helpless and enormous. Shen covered his mouth, then gave up and laughed too, tilting sideways against the wall. They laughed until their eyes ran with tears, until their ribs ached, until the woman of the house knocked cautiously on the door to ask if everything was all right. Old Wen won the bet, Bao managed to gasp. He always said he would, Shen wheezed, and somehow this seemed the funniest thing that had ever happened in the history of human beings. The funeral that wasn't quite a funeral word spread, as word does in small villages, and by morning a small crowd had gathered, uncertain, respectful, a little disturbed by the sounds emerging from the dead man's room. Bao and Shen prepared Wen's body with care and great affection, still chuckling between tasks. They dressed him in his best robe, which was not very best at all, being patched in 4 places, and they combed what remained of his white hair, and they folded his hands, and they talked to him the whole time as though he were merely resting. "You terrible old cheat," said Bao fondly. "Going first just to prove you were right." "He was always right," said Shen. It was his most annoying quality. A young monk from a nearby temple arrived to observe. He stood in the doorway, prepared to offer solemn rites, and found instead 2 ancient monks arguing cheerfully about whether Wen had known all along which road would be his last. The young monk opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Are you not grieving?" he finally asked. Bao considered this seriously. "We are grieving the way a river grieves the sea," he said. "It runs toward it as fast as it can." The young monk did not entirely understand, but he felt something loosen in his chest, like a knot gently untied. The villagers carried old Wen to a hillside overlooking the river he had loved watching. The procession was solemn for approximately 4 minutes, at which point Shen tripped on a root, stumbled magnificently, and only saved himself by grabbing a branch, which he then swung from briefly like a child before dropping safely to the ground. Even the most serious of the onlookers broke. Laughter spread through the procession like light through paper lanterns. Then came the moment that the village would speak of for generations. From inside, Wen's simple traveling pack, which Bao and Shen had been asked to sort and carry, they drew out something quite unexpected. Wrapped in cloth tied with a red cord, a carefully saved collection of festival firecrackers. Enough to light up a small sky. There was a folded note tucked alongside them, in Wen's unhurried handwriting. "For whichever of you fools reads this first, I have been saving these for something worth celebrating. A life fully lived and a bet honorably. Lost seems reason enough. Light them, laugh loudly, do not be sad. Or if you are, be sad the way you laugh, with your whole chest. Wen P.S. I told you I would go first." Bao read it aloud. Then he read it again. Then he pressed it against his heart and laughed until he sat down hard in the grass. Shen took the firecrackers. He lit them there on the hillside, one by one, and then all at once. And they erupted into the autumn sky in blooms of red and gold and white, cracking and blazing above the river, sending birds scattering from the trees, startling dogs in the village below, making children clap their hands and point upward with the purest delight. The colors hung in the air like Wen's laughter, brief, brilliant, and absolutely certain that they had been here. The crowd stood in the light of it, upturned faces, many of them laughing and many of them crying, and most of them doing both at once, not entirely sure where one ended and the other began. Afterward, Bao and Shen remained in the village for 3 more days, because there was too much food being pressed into their hands to leave earlier. On the 4th morning, they rose before dawn and resumed the road. They walked in comfortable silence for a while, the kind of silence that only exists between people who have laughed together for decades. The road ahead was long and wound into gray-blue hills. "Do you think he can hear us?" Bao asked eventually. Shen thought about it. "I think," he said, that wherever he is already laughing at us for asking. Bao smiled. Then the smile became a chuckle. Then the chuckle became the full, rolling, helpless laughter that had carried the two of them across the whole long breadth of China. Somewhere, in the hills or the river or the brightening sky, something laughed back. And the road, patient and ancient as it was, carried them forward. In the end, life does not ask how much you suffered. It asks how freely you laughed. We carry the illusion that grief and joy are opposites, that to laugh is to forget, and to mourn is to love. But the three monks knew a deeper truth. Joy is not the absence of loss. It is the courage to celebrate anyway. Death comes for all of us. This is not the tragedy. The tragedy is arriving at that moment, having saved your laughter for later, having waited for a better reason, having let the days pass quiet and unlived. The fireworks were not disrespect. They were the highest form of honor. A life so well lived, it deserved to go out blazing. So do not wait. Laugh now with the people in front of you. Find the absurdity in the hard days. Let joy be something you practice, not something you postpone. And when your time comes, as it came for when, as it comes for all, may the ones who loved you light something bright in your name and laugh so loudly that you hear it wherever you are.